All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow, and remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest for you. I'll give you a couple of words about my guest. Advocate, encouraging, mentor, positivity. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Anthony Winston II.
Oh, thank you very much. Third.
I'm sorry, the third. I'm sorry.
That's all good.
Third. I said the second. I'm sorry. Mr. Anthony Winston III, everybody. Put your hands together for him. All right.
Appreciate you.
No problem, brother. No problem. Now, you are here, and we're here to talk about ownership and entrepreneurship, because those are some of the things that you pretty much are in, and those are pretty much some of the things that you've mastered and you've shared on to others. One of the first questions I want to ask you is, what drives your desire to give back, especially to those who are not even in your field?
I think it's super important that we as Black folks, when we're going through things and we're achieving certain things, it's always a good idea to bring other folks with you, right? The goal is to make the path for the next person coming behind you that much smoother, right? So that they can get there quicker and more efficient, to avoid especially a lot of the pitfalls, because comparatively we start 50 yards behind the starting line when it comes to anything you can think of, whether it's education, whether it's home ownership, whether it's your wealth, all that good stuff. So that's my goal. And then two, being an engineer, most people don't choose that career path. So, and then specifically I'm in power, which a lot of people in engineering don't go into. And then go even more granular, I'm in construction, so it's even less people in it. So you look at it that way, and it's a lot less people that look like us. So I get a lot of folks who hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn and say, hey, I like what you're doing, I appreciate it, I want to try to do that. So it's always my goal to pass along as much knowledge as I possibly can, and I've done that in a few blogs that I've written, just to kind of leave those breadcrumbs out there so that people can follow and get go down their own path. So when somebody hits me up, I'll copy and paste that or my blog and say, here, start here, and then come back with any specific questions that you have, and then we go down that path.
All right, now I'm going to say we're going to talk about some of these articles that you've written in a minute, but we're going to get through the rest of these questions. But we're going to talk about some of these articles because I was reading through, two other articles of how I escaped my 9 to 5 and, the crux 5 years in, business. And, just in reading those and some of the points that you hit on, I really don't think, we sometimes really take time out to think about those things. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, I want to talk about something I find very interesting, and we can talk about this. Let's, expand on this a little bit. But I want to talk about return on investment, especially when it comes to kids going to college. Now, reading, like I said, reading some of the things that you were talking about, well, first and foremost, I'm gonna start with, what is a return on investment for kids going to college in your eyes?
So what's happening now is a lot of kids are going to college, getting these degrees, and they're getting themselves in a whole lot of debt, right? So in my mind, it doesn't make sense for a kid to go to a college, rack up $50,000 to $100,000 in student loan debt, and you're majoring in some kind of general, and no shade on anybody who does it, and you're majoring in a general business degree, right? That you come out maybe making $40,000, $50,000 a year. When you factor in your living expenses and things like that, it's going to take you a really long time to pay that off. And to me, that's a bad investment, where something is going to take that long to pay off and you get really no benefit from it. Maybe, potentially writing off some of the student loan debt. But I always tell kids, hey, if you want to go to college, let's talk about what you're going to major in. If you're going to do engineering like myself, if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or something that's more specialized where you need that, you absolutely need to go to college to do it, and you're going to come out of school making $60, $70, $80, $100,000 a year, then it makes sense. But if you come to me and say, I want to be a business owner, well, before I started my company, I had 0 business experience. I didn't take any business classes in college. I just Googled, how do you start a business? And there's tons of free information out there. I mean, the federal government has quite a few programs where you can get a mentor that's, this particular person may have been in business or in the business realm for over 20 something years. And now you can get that, you can soak up that free information. And then 2, not everybody's cut out for college. To be quite honest, if I would have known what I know now, I may have chosen a different path. I'm not complaining, we do pretty well for ourselves, but there are other options. And in my mind as a kid, I thought I had to go to college to be successful.
Okay. So I'm glad. There you go. I'm so glad you said that. Especially that last part, because, I think sometimes, especially in the African American community, we have built ourselves up on this, belief that, hey, you know what, man, I go to college, man, I'm gonna get a good job, I'm gonna, have this type of life, everything's gonna be good as long as I, go down this path. And as you said, there's been instances, and I know and I know, and there's people, my followers out here know as well. You have seen people go through 3.5 years of college under one program. The semester, this is a semester they're about to graduate. But it comes to the realization that, you know what? I don't see a future in that. I want to go into something else. So now you've already spent 3.5 years building your way up to, go through one door when you really realize that's not the door you want to go through. And because of most of the time, people, I'm going to say it, y'all may be mad at me, pressure from family members or others around us who may not have achieved, any further or what have you, who believe that it's the best way to go about doing things. And, it's no shade to them. Just in their mind, they were told that's the way to get it. So they're going to instill into you that that's the way you should get it. But we live in a day and age, you and I both know, and I try to tell kids this as well, I work with middle school and high school youth or what have you, and I've been saying this for the last, I'm going to say maybe 8 years. Some of you don't need to go to college if you learn how to make an app. You'll never have to go to college. You won't even need it. If you already know what type of app you want to make, or there are certain things out here that you can do right now that you make, certain basic coding, certain basic things you can just learn. You don't need to spend 4 years racking up X, Y, and Z, amount of money to go into a field that you're not going to be satisfied in, to wake up one day and be like, I want to do something else with my life.
Yeah.
So return on investment, I think that's, as soon as I seen that, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let's talk about that, because that's something that I feel, we really do need to talk about, because, I'm just going to say this and then I'm going to, move on. Sometimes going through progressions, especially as African Americans, we went through the Great Migration. And in the Great Migration, a lot of us didn't go to college. There's only 1 or 2 that went off. And when they went off, they never came back. They made something for themselves and they, did whatever they had to do from there. Through the years, I guess from those moments, well, hey, you know what? That's what the example. Send them off to school. You ain't gonna, man, look here. If you ain't going to school, you got to get out my house. You got to go get a job. You got to go do this if you ain't going to school. But sometimes when people, you know, who like come from no plan, want you to plan, you have no idea where you're going because no one has a vision.
Yeah, and then too, I'm glad you touched on the Great Migration. You know, you got all the folks coming from the rural South coming up north to places like Detroit, Chicago, etc. And you got all these amazing manufacturing jobs where, you know, you may not even need a high school diploma, right? And you can make a really good living, work for 30 years, get a nice little pension. But then once those jobs went away, you know, you leave these communities kind of in shambles. So I can understand how, you know, the older generation is like, all right, I want to see you make it. And I'm speaking from their perspective, in my mind, the only way you're going to do that is unless you go to college and get an education.
Right.
The unfortunate part of that is there's a financial component to that. And, you know, unless you get a scholarship, you know, athletic or academic or whatever the case may be, you leaving, you know, negative 50,000 like I did when I left college.
Woo, look, yeah. And I mean, that's real. And, you know, that's something that we really don't talk about. You know, that's a stressor within itself, because let's just say you're a person who didn't complete the 4-year degree and you do have this debt now. There is no return on investment. Okay. Now you're just really in debt. You really can't get to where you really want to be because, I mean, man, you have this looming over your head in the background. And that's, you know, those are just things, you know, we just really don't need. But those are situations for another time, brother.
Yeah.
We're about to move it on. Okay. We're about to move it on. We are here to talk about you. Okay. Now, my next question, you are a father. Okay. You have 2 girls, correct?
2 daughters, yeah.
2 daughters. Now, I heard you talk about STEM programs, okay? And I've heard some of the comments you made, like, hey, there's no favoritism. I treat them just as if, you know, everybody else out there would treat them the same, you know, like I talk to them as if life would be talking to them almost. That's what I got from them. So my question to you is, in your mind, why do you feel it's very important to get girls into STEM programs?
Well, I think we got to break that mentality of, all right, the boys get the action figures and the girls get the, you know, the play set with the dolls and the play kitchen and all that stuff, right? Right. You really have to treat them the same. My girls are 5 and 6, and they have a bunch of little architect building sets. They got, I mean, they've been playing with the little, you know, electric circuits for the past couple of years now. And of course, some of it is age appropriate. Some of it you really have to be there with them because they may not be old enough, but just for them to experience that and understand, oh, I have this little solar robot. When the sunlight hits it, it does something, right? And then that leads into the conversation of, oh, baby, look, on our roof, we have these solar panels. And guess what? Anytime you turn the TV on or whatever, that's powering this. So it really gets their mind going. But then the other reason is you need them in the room, right? When it comes to design and things like that, you have to have different perspective. And you need a female perspective. I truly believe that. It's no different than like having different ethnicities in a room of all industries, because it brings a different perspective.
True.
So I want my girls to be able to compete and, you know, with the best of them and the best thing. And I know math, I know science, so I can really teach them what I know, right? So that's kind of how we roll in our household.
Okay.